Internet connections in outlying villages are not often the best, but is having a super fast network always a good thing? Hi everyone, I'm Johnny Thompson and welcome to the Village Halls podcast, sponsored by Allied Westminster, the UK's largest specialist provider of village hall insurance and the home of Village Guard. Now, a couple of years ago, I had a lovely chat with Hermione Lamond from the small village of Elgol on the Isle of Skye. Hermione told me how her village hall shop had kept the locals going through the pandemic and how, without the internet, none of her great work would have been possible. Today, I'm joined by another resident of Elgol, Marc Smith, who is a freelance animator and also director of community broadband company HebNet. Marc is majorly responsible for an unbelievably fast internet connection being available in his remote village and elsewhere on Skye. And today we're going to talk about how he and the community achieved this and whether it's entirely a good thing. Hi, Marc. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Johnny. Thanks very much for having me.
Now, like we do for most of our podcast recordings, Marc, you've joined me via the internet today. So let's hope that after bigging up your internet connection,
well, I hope so.
We'll get any technical hitches. That could be a bit embarrassing, but
yeah, you might have some editing to do there.
Yeah. But anyway, before we talk about how you managed to speed things up there on Skye, I guess. Tell me how and when you came to be living there in the first place, and what exactly is it that you do for a living?
Well, I originally lived just south of Edinburgh, in a place called Pennycook, and I started my business there. But then because you can work from anywhere, being a freelancer, myself and my partner decided to move to wherever we wanted, and we used to holiday up on Skye.
Yeah.
We thought, right, we'll pick a place. So there was 2 places available on Skye, and we ended up in Elgol. And all I knew was that they had BT broadband, so it wasn't dial-up, it was broadband. But I suppose it was only when I moved into the house that I did a speed check and we got 0.47 meg, which is, even for 10 years ago, is appalling.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, it's
that's megabytes a second, isn't it, when you say meg?
Yeah, megabytes per second, yeah. So 0.47. It was consistently... Well, I suppose it was consistently rubbish, but it was consistently 0.47 megabytes. That was down. I think up was maybe it would be less anyway.
Yeah.
And most of my stuff was uploading because I finished my animations. So I'm an animator. So once I finished an animation, I would then upload it to the customer, and it was just it wasn't really terrible, but I didn't really think anything of it. In all honesty, I just thought we chose to live in a remote place. That comes with it.
And it's digital animation that you do, yeah. So
it's not the. I was going to say not the good stuff that Walt Disney and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's more the digital side of animation, which I still love. I've been doing it for 14 years now, and it's still amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that it allows you to work wherever, like even when I used to. Well, I'd like to go on holiday to France again, but when I did, I could bring the laptop and I could work anywhere. I could always keep on top of projects when I was away. And that was just, I still love that aspect of the job.
And that poor connection that was a challenge for you and your kind of digital existence, I guess, would have also been challenging for the community, including the wonderful village hall there that you have as well. Yeah.
I totally, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think anyone worked at home that I knew of when I first moved to the village. Yeah. I can't remember anyone working at home, but it was probably more down to you can't, rather than like if you're given an option, you can't say yes to that if you're on 0.47. Yeah, it's just impossible.
Yeah, just to put it into perspective, I guess 0.47 meg. If you try to download a half-hour soap opera or something with that, you'd still be there next week. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think if you were to upload or if you download a 1 megabyte file, because it's never really exactly half.
Yeah.
So say 20 megabytes would probably take about a minute and a half to download with 0.47. Now on what I've got now, it'll be about a second and a half.
Right.
So it's a considerable difference.
Yeah.
And I remember if I was in the house and I was on a Skype call, my partner, I was like, don't answer emails, don't do this, don't do that, because you can't. If you were to do anything, even load a picture, it would cut the phone call off if you're on Skype. And a lot of our customers are in abroad in America or Canada. So like you need that communication. When it was a phone call, I was like, "Oh no, please don't cut out." It was quite embarrassing. It is embarrassing. The most basic thing, a phone call. And in fact, I think back then, I upgraded my EE phone that did overseas calls, just so I could call people on the mobile.
Yeah.
No, that's half true. I had to leave the house and go up to the corner to make the phone call. That's what I did. Is it? Do you know? Looking back, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely funny. Ridiculous that that's what I did.
I can remember a holiday in Norfolk many years ago where I literally had to drive down the street and find this wall. There was one wall, that if you stood next to it, you could just about get a connection, and then
you have to wear a tinfoil hat to make things work.
Yeah, exactly, brilliant. So as we've kind of indicated already, me in the introduction and you there, things have improved somewhat. So just talk me through what happened next, Mark, after you got there, and then that wasn't very good. How did things move on?
Well, there was a few stages. There was a company called Two Way, but they did satellite broadband. And satellite broadband was okay. It gave you about 25 to 30 meg, which is good, but you were limited to, I think we had a 100 gig limit, and it doesn't take long to use up that limit. Yeah. I think it was £100 a month. So we had that installed. Well, I installed it. That's what I used to do for a job as well, install satellite dishes and music systems. So I put that in the garden, because you can't put them on walls in Skye because they blow off. So we put that in the garden. It gave us a good connection, but still phone calls were questionable because the ping, because the satellites they're higher up than what the newer system is. So the ping was 800 milliseconds, which is, give or take 1 second. So if I was to ask a question, it would take a second, 2 seconds, one to go up, one to come back down again. And it had that delay, which I suppose, see, if you watch a news report back in maybe like 5-10 years ago, that's the same thing. It was a bit awkward, but it was very good. You could do everything you wanted to do in it, but sometimes you had to keep an eye on your limit, because if you hit that limit, you went down to basically slower than what BT was providing.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that to get the internet to the Isle of Skye, it had to come to Elgo first, then bounce over, because they use dishes, like 5 gig dishes. It goes from the mainland to Rum to Elgo, but no one in Elgo used it, and then straight over to Skye.
Right.
So they bounce it over to Skye, and I think the Isle of Skye as well. There's 3 people on the Isle of Skye, and that's where it went to there. And I was just like, because I'm one of 4 directors of the HebNet community interest company, and I said to it was Ian who runs it on Rum side of things. I said, "Oh, can I get a connection, please?" And he went, "Yeah, that's fine." So we put a connection on the garden, and I think I got 15 meg, and it was about, the ping was maybe 30 or 40 milliseconds, which is a lot of the time it's the ping that makes it slow. Yeah. You could have 100 meg, but if the ping's slow, everything feels slow. But because the ping was so low, it was amazing. So it was like we had entered the 21st century. It was amazing. We did also. I mean, we signed up to Netflix. You could start to use YouTube properly, and you didn't worry about the limit, the 100 gig limit, because there was no limit. They just said, if you're doing any big downloads, do it overnight. Yeah, because it's less congested then as well, so you get a much better speed. So that's what I ended up having. Everyone else in the village was like, "Oh, can I come around and use your internet? I need to download someone came around to download an update for a Call of Duty or one of those games." And it was like 100 gig or something. But they left the laptop overnight and they downloaded it. So a lot of people, you'd see them in the garden using the internet. And I did say, this is the password. I put a router in the garden so people could then use the internet if they wanted to. Because everyone else was stuck. If you really were stuck, you can't do anything with 0.47. Even if you're trying to just go through Facebook, it was just it wouldn't load very well. So a lot of the time they did this, and they're like, "Oh, can we get the system as well? Can we get the system as well?" Was always the question. But then I can't remember how it came about. But I must have been at a party or something. If I had a drink in me, I was like, "Well, I'll put the internet in. I'll just give everyone a dish. I'll speak to Ian, see if we can do an LCOM network." And he was quite keen to do that as well. So it just came about that we got 65 dishes or so. It was all self-funded. Everyone in Elgo paid £275. Right. And we bought all the equipment, all the cables, all the ends, everything we needed to put the system in. And basically we put the put the network in. I think we're now 67 houses
Fantastic.
are all installed, and they all there's a mast up in the headland which supplies east and west of Elgol, and there's one down at the pier which does the whole pier. I think there's maybe 9 or 10 houses down at the pier.
Yeah.
It's down a very steep hill, so you need to have an extra one there. So yeah, that gives everyone between 20 and 50 meg, depending who's using it at that time and what the household's doing. But what we've got now, so that system has been in for 5 or 6 years now, and all the dishes are slowly starting to fail. You maybe get one every 3 months. It's not that bad, but they're starting to fail. I mean, last night our speed was 95 miles per hour. That was the gusts from last night. So they do take an absolute hammer, and they've done extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's just their time has come. So luckily, last year or the year before, EE were looking to put a mast into Elgol. And I don't know why they wanted to speak to me, but they did. So they came around, and I was walking around with these guys from EE just doing, I don't know what I was there for. Maybe to build up numbers, but we were walking around discussing connections. And they said, we want to do something for the community. And I was like, I'll tell you what, give us money. If you give us a donation to HebNet Community Interest Company, we can then buy fibre and do this, that, and the next thing. And they said, no, we can't do it. There's no spare money to do this. Right. So I said, that's fine then. He says, but we can put in the mast for, if you like. We can put the base in and run the trench for you. I was like, that sounds good. But anyway, they sent me an email to say, we've just had a quote back from this company to put the mast site in for you. But for some reason, they included the quote, and it was £15,000. I was like, you said you had no money. So it says, tell you what, give us £15,000. We'll go ahead and put the mast up, buy all the fibre for the entire village, all the equipment, all the little nodes that go in the houses. So we managed to buy all of those and pay... His name's Chainsaw Charlie. Anyway, he digs the ditches for us. So yeah, he gets paid to dig the ditches. So all that money that they didn't really have has gone towards running fibre. So now we've got 13 houses on fibre just now. By next year, we'll probably have 30 or 40, and then I think one more year, because we only really do it between April and September, because essentially we run out of money halfway through the year. We run out of money to pay myself and Charlie to basically dig ditches and put them into houses.
Yeah.
So you only do what you can do. But
so it sounds, Mark, like you've just basically took the bull by the horns, as people say, rather than sitting there waiting, for somebody to eventually come around and find you and give you the internet
totally.
that you need. You've just basically thought yourselves, right, well, we're going to have to do this ourselves, yeah?
Oh yeah, that's I suppose, I don't know if it's all islands, but I know it's certainly on Skye. If you want something done, just do it yourself.
Yeah,
it's always what you've got to do.
And that's the thing that fascinates me about this is I can imagine there's probably a lot of people still, throughout the UK, thinking and wishing that they had a better internet connection where they are, but they're literally just sitting waiting for somebody else to sort it out. And in essence, you're proof that you don't have to do that. Yeah.
Well, that's right. Yeah, our costs, so we only charge a customer £15 per month. That's I don't know what BT is now, probably £30 per month for the broadband. Yeah. But we're still having it been £15 a month from the day they started, and it's not changed at all. And I think it's a really good service, because if there's an issue, say for example, BT would take 7 days to come out to fix it. But when it's HebNet, we're basically out the same day. Someone drove through a ditch and ripped up our fibre cable and stopped the signal. That within 2 hours, I think, that was the connection was back on again.
And that's a good thing about it as well, isn't it? Of course, the provider, you and some of the other people there and in the community need it as well, exactly as you say. So if anything does go wrong, it's going to get fixed pretty quick because you need it as much as the next person on the island. Yeah.
I think there's been an increase in people working from home, and any time I put in the internet, it was the last person to get the connection because they didn't want it, and we put it in, and he was like, I won't use it. I swear. Then 2 weeks after, he binge watched all the Breaking Bad and another TV show on Netflix. It's like when you've got it, you realise how good the internet actually is.
Yeah,
you can waste a lot of your life just scrolling through YouTube shorts and whatnot, but there's so much stuff on there that's, if you want to know how to fix a car, you can go into YouTube and find that information.
Yeah.
So I think people have realised that there's just so much more to what 0.47 megabytes can give you.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, we've talked quite a few times on this show about community businesses, but we tend to have talked about marketplaces and shops. Rather like Hermione developed herself. But it's fascinating to imagine that you can also create a community business that is all about providing this network and infrastructure as well, which is tremendous. Yeah,
It's when you think about how good it is, it's amazing how it all works. Because I mean. So, say if you have like a group, like a small village in the UK somewhere that doesn't have decent broadband.
Yeah.
If you can see someone with decent broadband or see something that say you can see an exchange and it's 15 miles away, but you've got line of sight to it, but it's away. You can hire lease a line from BT or whoever has a connection in the exchange. Put a dish on the exchange and send it back over to you, and then you have that. It's basically like running a wire, but wirelessly. That's essentially what it's like.
I'm kind of getting what you're saying. It's like when you've got a spot in your house which doesn't receive the Wi-Fi in your internet, so you get something and you plug it in. You can hear how technical I am when I'm saying all of this. Of course, you plug it in and it picks up the signal. You're just talking about doing that on a just a far bigger scale, aren't you? Basically.
Oh yeah, and it's much more reliable. I know what you're talking about there. It's much more reliable than that as well.
Yeah,
it's like the weather. Skye gets questionable weather at the best of times, but the weather doesn't really affect it. It's the strangest thing. Like when there's a storm, it doesn't really go down. Power might go down, but it doesn't actually put the internet connection off. I don't know why, but it's so good. So if one of the listen or a group of the listeners of yours has an issue with the internet or can see someone or wants to put something in their house that gives them a better connection, they can share that with the community. You can create a company, and or you don't have to have a company. I suppose you can just share it with your community. But that's how to do it, because those dishes, I mean, they're £120 for a dish, so you need two, one for your house, one for the next person's house or your neighbour's house. It's not that difficult to do.
Yeah,
it's really
these particular dishes that you're talking about are not very big, are they? They're not.
I've not got video here. It's I don't know how big, 15 centimeters, I would say, 15 centimeters. So they're very, very small. If you want to go long distance, like what we do across the islands, you need a lot big. The dishes are maybe 50 centimeters. They're not horrendous. They're not horrendous anyway. It's total manageable what you can do with them.
Easier than putting a Skye dish on the side of your house. Basically.
In fact, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Tremendous. So that's the advice, really, is if you're struggling with the internet, don't sit and wait for somebody else to do it. Set yourself up a community business and get it. See what you can do yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there is a new system called Starlink. Whether you like Elon Musk or not, he created this system, and it's satellite broadband, but their satellites are way lower in the atmosphere. So the ping, it's the same as the old system, but the ping is the same as fiber. It's like having fiber into the house. So you get 250 odd meg with a ping about 25 milliseconds, and they align themselves. I put one in for a neighbour not long ago. And you could literally throw it on the ground and it'll align itself and find all the dishes that it needs to in space. And within 10 minutes, it's done its moving about, and you've got incredibly fast broadband in your house.
Yeah. And
again, it's cheaper than the old satellite broadband. It's £70 a month or something. It's much cheaper than what it was before. And see if you're struggling for the internet, that's a good way. It's an instant fix. Yeah. You don't have to do anything. You just pop that dish in your garden. No alignment necessary. You can put a couple of breeze boxes on top of the stand if you want, and it works straight out of the box.
Now, listen, we've been very positive, as we always usually are on this show so far. But there is a slight potential negative side, isn't there, in having a faster connection? Tell me about the cost of living there, Mark, especially things like house prices and so on. Because there's a connection here, isn't there? There's a link. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the cost of living, they do say it's more expensive to live here.
Yeah.
But where I am, there's no pub, so you can't go out and spend your money in a pub. So I think it's all relative in that respect. But the cost, because it's where it is, and obviously the COVID pandemic as well, people want to move to the country.
Yeah.
But obviously, you can't move to the country unless you have decent broadband. So having the broadband there has been really good. But it's also, I get phone calls. If it's a house for sale in Elgol, I get a phone call, say, what's the broadband like? And then I tell them, I always say, first of all, are you going to move here? Everyone's like, oh, yes, we're going to move here and blah, blah, blah. And then you don't hear from them again. And then the house is gone for a ridiculous amount of money. And it's just gone to a holiday home where they are going to come up every so often. It's like just a second home and not as a holiday home. Yeah. And so it lies dormant most of the time. And your heart sinks when you know they're not going to be there. And having super fast internet, they think, I can work, because a lot of the time, if you work in a big city, you can now still work from home as well, maybe 3 days a week. So it makes it possible to come up to places like Skye. You could do a very long weekend, but also catch up and work when you're there. And having the decent broadband is made positives and negatives.
Yeah,
it's so disheartening to know that. Like when I always ask them if they're going to live here. Most of the time, it's a no, and you're like, it's just like there's struggling for families to move into these places. I've got 3 children, twin boys who are 10. They were the last 2 pupils in the local primary school, and they had to leave at the end of primary 5, and they now get the pleasure of driving a single track road for half an hour, 15 miles in, 15 miles back, every day, because there's no other. Well, there is kids who are younger than 5, but not in the primary school. So that primary school has now closed. And if you know what councils are like, it'll be a real challenge to get that primary school back open again. Yeah. And a lot of it is because people are buying properties that are not even living there.
Yeah.
And
so
because
there's homes there, but there's no people in them. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, honestly, when you go along, there's a lot of empty, like stunningly beautiful houses. They're just lying empty. And sometimes you feel like, why am I giving them fibre? It's not being used to build up the community. It's just it's part of the problem.
I was just going to say another potential tip there. If you want to stop all of this holiday home problem in rural villages and areas, the secret is turn the internet off. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I'll get some bolt cutters and start shooting through all the cables and be laying.
Yeah, and then everyone will go away and everything will go back to how it used to be. Yeah.
I know, yeah. It's just, yes. Do you know, there is no solution to that problem because money will always talk.
Yeah.
It will always talk. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and the world changes around us, and we have to change with it. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. But luckily, there's 4 or 5 kids who are below 5 in the surrounding area. So there is a potential to get the school open again, which is really nice, and I hope it does open again because the school is on. I mean, if anyone just Googles Elgol Primary School, it's on the beach. Like the windows look out to the harbour, and my kids, I know they've seen a few dolphins around the pier and stuff. It's just a great place to grow up, and I thought that my youngest would also get to have that experience as well.
And tell our listeners, Mark, what one of your kids wants to be, because it's not an animator, is it? Tell them what
a fisherman. Yeah, one wants to be a fisherman. Yeah,
which is fantastic. You know what I mean? I think that's tremendous that you've made your way there, and then the real traditional industry.
Oh yeah.
And everything.
You don't need the internet. Anything traditional, you don't need the internet for.
yeah, absolutely, fantastic.
Yeah.
But interesting. Be careful what you wish for, kind of.
Exactly. Exactly.
As well, when it comes to fast internet. Well, listen, it's been great having a blether, as you say, in those parts of the world. I know, and I know how much you love living there, where you do, Mark. So keep enjoying the beauty of the place and the lifestyle there as well, of course.
Excellent. There's one more story. Can I tell you one wee thing about the village hall?
Yeah.
Well, there was a wedding in Elgol, and they were holding the honeymoon in the village hall.
Mm-hmm.
And normally in these places, like everything's cash. You've got to have cash to pay for drinks and stuff.
Yeah.
And we went down to the wedding, and they were all of a sudden they had a sum up machine, like a card machine, so you could go to the bar and pay for things with a card. Which I don't think I paid for a drink all night, because when I went to the bar, because it's easier to pay for someone else's drink because you got your card out. Oh, so you want a drink, Mark? Obviously, I'm going to say yes. And they put it on the card. And it's that thing there, like, you don't have to go drive an hour round trip to Brawford to go and collect cash before a night out in Elgol, you can now just put your card on the device and that's it done. And that's because of the internet. That's because it's fast enough. 0.47 megabyte wouldn't be fast enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the HaveNet system or anything over 1 meg means that people can use your cards to do to pay for drinks. And that to me was like, it was quite a proud moment, actually. It's quite a nice thing that's what it allowed people to drink more and buy me a drink when I went to the bar. Like, stick on the card. It was amazing. It really was amazing.
I love it. So you're sitting there thinking, I am responsible for all this drinking, basically.
Yeah.
You've totally negated any of the health benefits and so on that you mentioned earlier of there not being a pub there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
well done, Mark. You know what I mean? Tremendous. You deserve a pat.
Do my bit for the community there, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, of course, yeah. There's some things in the community that are really important, and it's good to hear that you're maintaining that. Tremendous.
Oh yeah,
that's great, Mark. It's I've really enjoyed the chat.
It's been really good fun.
It's been tremendous, and say hello to Hermione as well.
I will do.
Time you bump into her, please.
I will do, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant, Mark. Listen, thanks again. And that's about all for this episode of our podcast, folks. Many thanks to our headline sponsor and specialist insurance provider, Allied Westminster, for making our podcast possible, and whose services you can discover more about at villageguard.com, and to online booking system provider Hallmaster, who also sponsor our podcast and can be found at hallmaster.co.uk. You've been listening to the Village Halls podcast, a unique listening community for Britain's village, church and community halls, and anyone interested in the vital community services they provide. We'll be back again soon with another episode. For more information, please visit thevillagehallspodcast.com, where you'll also find links to our social media pages. Thanks again for listening in, and until the next time, goodbye for now.